Hey guys, it's me Lachlan here today with a brand new Battlefield 4 video, and as you can tell by the title, we are here today with a Dragon's Teeth review, and it's been out for a little while now, and I've had roughly a day and a half to play the DLC, unlock all the weapons, play through all the maps and modes available, and give you an overall consensus of what's going down inside Dragon's Teeth. So to kick off this review, we're going to talk about Dragon's Teeth as a whole and what its goal was inside Battlefield 4 and what would make it different. And we're also going to go into a bit of detail about the maps. Now this new DLC Dragon's Teeth had one goal, and that was to produce a very good infantry and urban combat related DLC, and it fits in quite nicely with the game overall. Now Battlefield 4 has had a previous themed DLC as we've seen in Naval Strike, but this one does separate itself quite well from the overall vanilla basis of the game by adding a dimension to the game which is really underappreciated and undernoticed. Now Dragon's Teeth does infantry combat very well, and this sector of the game is something which is generally quite broken down dependent on the game mode that you're playing. Now if you're playing Conquest Large, infantry combat is by and large pretty small. It's very rare, you come across it occasionally, and when you do it tends to be pretty decent as a whole, unless of course you're on the losing side of the bullet. But Dragon's Teeth changes all of that. It gets rid of all of the vehicles inside Conquest Large and all these big game modes which we rely on and play on in Battlefield 4, and replaces it with a more solemn kind of feel. It gives us slightly reduced sized maps, it gives us better diversity inside these maps, and it gives us lots of infantry versus infantry combat. Playing Conquest Large, seeing a bunch of guys running with the use of roughly maybe one or two quad bikes, a dirt bike, and maybe if they're lucky a tank, really shifts up the game, and it changes it in a way that I think is very beneficial. You'll start off, for example, in Propaganda, which is one of the maps, and you'll see immediately 32 players rushing towards all the objectives, and it creates a very good competitive environment. Everybody is playing the objective and they're playing it well. Now it breaks down very well. You get into these very good urban situations of combat, and these battles, because they're so different and because they're in different maps and because it's with different people with different playing styles, you'll find that there will never be a time where you're in a replication of a similar situation. You'll be in very unique situations. Now as I was recording the footage for this actual review itself, something happened to me in Sunken Dragon which hasn't happened so far. I was playing the DLC and this massive fight of control happened over Bravo objective, where indeed the restaurant is, a floating restaurant, and we were just pushing really hard to defend it and create an environment that you rarely get to see inside Battlefield 4, that real infantry versus infantry tactical play, and very much the Battlefield that we want to see. Everything that Battlefield should be about: raw battles with realism and, you know, being very much consumed and engulfed in the realism of the game, and that's what Dragon's Teeth did really well. Now this new vector to the game, the infantry style and urban based combat, is amplified somewhat by the variation of playstyles and variation of map that you were given in the DLC. We have 4 maps: Pearl Market, Lumpini Garden, Propaganda and Sunken Dragon. All these have their very own interpretations of urban combat in very different environments. Now my only complaints so far about the new maps are 2 things. The colour palette on some of the maps is a bit bland, for example in Pearl Market, and secondly, I feel as though the spectator mode is somewhat underutilized. It's very limited in space where it can move, and that can cause some issues for any casters out there or anybody who does some kind of esports gameplay. But the overall map consensus is really good. You get a good variation of maps. Lumpini Garden is a green map. It's got lots of green environments, lots of trees, lots of bushes scattered about between some kind of urban area. And this urban area is completely changed by the Levolution event, which destroys an entire railway and gives you a mudslide and really shifts up the game a little bit. And I've really enjoyed this map. It's very open, leaves a lot to be desired for snipers out there, and it definitely means that team players and infantry foot soldiers have to have really good tactical awareness. And then the feeling of the map's is shaken up a bit, and we're thrown into Propaganda, which is based in North Korea, a very oppressed area in North Korea in a snowy urban environment. And it's safe to say the level designers have done very, very well. They've used a really good set of colours and structures available in the map to give you a different kind of playing style to the other 3. Now Propaganda does something really well, and that is that replication of North Korea itself. It gives us a snowy environment, but you can tell from the statues and the writing and the posters that it's a very sort of oppressed environment. It's trying to replicate the situation that we're seeing currently in North Korea. And I feel as though they've actually achieved that very well, which is quite surprising. And when you play in this map, you're given somewhat of a lane kind of structure. You're given a very sort of straight and vertical map where the real deal here is to get down these pathways and start taking these objectives. Now it gives you that sort of vector where you're kind of in Operation Locker and you're going down these lanes and it kind of ends up in a clusterfuck. But what it does is it introduces two other objectives in a slightly smaller urban environment across the railway road to make more of a conquest style feeling, more of a tactical style feeling. You often see that there'll be areas where you're going to be fighting across range between 3 objectives and 2 objectives and making sure that that train doesn't kill you. And I really did enjoy this map, and I thoroughly believe it's going to be a fan favourite and could make a return. Now the other map is indeed Pearl Market, and Pearl Market is one of those maps which kind of changes the opinion on the DLC for some people. The same goes for Sunken Dragon. These are the 2 maps where criticism has been brought up. Now, in my own personal opinion, I really do enjoy all 4 of these maps that we've been given, but 2 people and many other various people on Reddit have made general complaints about both Pearl Market and Sunken Dragon. Now, Pearl Market is indeed an urban environment. It's very much like Flood Zone, and there's very much verticality involved in the map. And as a result of that, you are left fairly exposed. There's alleyways and corners, and it's really difficult to stay alive unless you keep on your toes. Now, I really enjoyed that map. I personally did very well. My KD ratio is incredibly high on that map, and I can see why some people wouldn't like it, and some people would probably say that it's a bad map. When you're scattered across sort of rooftops and all these little urban corners and environments and alleyways, it can get very much kind of clusterfucky, which is what people generally don't like on Battlefield 4. But I felt as though it was very well controlled, very well sort of flowed and played out, and my experience so far on Pearl Market has been very pristine. So I enjoyed that as a map. But then there's the flip side of that. You might not like Sunken Dragon. Now, the complaint about Sunken Dragon is just the positions of the objectives and things like that, and at the moment it's very much one-sided for one team. There's like 3 objectives on one area, and there's 2 across the water, which makes it a very interesting but somewhat difficult struggle. And there's definitely a lot of recycled structures in there. You can see the car park from Flood Zone, you can see one of the main buildings from Objective Delta on Siege of Shanghai, and it's kind of disappointing to see in a DLC, but I quite enjoyed that as well. I felt as though the restaurant gave us a very good area of sort of area for us to push for, an area that people are going to be going to, as well as the control tower for the floodgates, which allows you to raise and lower the river and make almost a kind of change up the map, sort of, but nothing of the significance, for example, of the mudslide. And, you know, I felt as though this was a good map. I enjoyed my experience on it. Some people will dislike it, some people will like it. So overall, I'd say in terms of maps, you're guaranteed to like at least 3 out of 4 of the new DLC available in Dragon's Teeth. Then we have the new mode, and the new mode is Chainlink mode, which essentially is somewhat like Conquest. You're basically given lots of objectives scattered around, which are adjacent to one another, and when you capture these adjacent objectives, you create a link. These links can be made into double links, triple links, quadruple links, and that's how it goes. Making these links allows you to burn tickets for the other team and beat them and essentially win the game through that method. And some people have complained about this mode. They say it's a bit of a gimmick, doesn't really make much sense, or it's just really not that important. It's basically a scaled back version of Conquest. But I would disagree. Now on PlayStation 4, often we do see different experiences to other platforms, and from what I've seen so far, Chainlink is a very much fast-paced mode. If you play the objective really well, which is, you know, something that's important on the servers that I play on, I generally try and play on my level BF servers with fellow teammates and players, and it's very much a play the objective kind of game mode. Now, my only complaint about Chainlink at the moment is just the length of it. Unfortunately, it's very short. You'll see that essentially a game can last between 2 to 3 minutes or maximum 10 minutes, and the maximum is 10 minutes. Now, you can change this, of course, on ranked servers, but it'd be nice to see DICE to at least kind of bump up the ticket rate and time limit of this game mode to make it a bit more enjoyable. Now, finally, on the new DLC, we have the weapons available, and that is the Unica 6, the Deagle 44, the CS5 Macmillan Sniper Rifle, we have the MPX, and the Bulldog Assault Rifle. Now, I'm incredibly happy with the new weapons that we have been given in the new DLC. The Bulldog Assault Rifle is very useful. Some claim it's overpowered. But you'll see, for example, in the clip size and the reload time that really isn't the case. The CS5 sniper rifle is a very good aggressive recon weapon. It's not very much useful for long range because of its bullet muzzle velocity, so it has its own drawbacks as well. The MPX is a fantastic PDW, and it's the first time I think I can safely say I can take a PDW into combat and feel readily prepared. I can take a PDW into Conquest and enjoy it and play well. And I'm really happy that that's happened. I'm really enjoying this weapon. It's probably going to be the one I use the most. Then we have the Deagle 44, which is essentially a Desert Eagle, somewhat overpowered, will be buffed soon, but does have somewhat of an accuracy drawback if you start spamming the entire clip. And then we have the final weapon, which is indeed the Unica 6. And the Unica 6 is a second sidearm. And I'm quite disappointed with this weapon. It's not the fact that it's a bad weapon, it's actually fairly decent, but there's just basically no point of it existing. Because of the Desert Eagle, there's basically just no point of this gun being in the DLC. And I really would have enjoyed seeing a new DMR, or possibly even a new LMG. I feel as though this was a complete waste of a weapon to put in the game. Now, overall, in terms of weapons, I'm incredibly happy with 4 of them, which is the Deagle, the Bulldog, the CS5, and indeed the MPX. These 4 guns, for the first time in a DLC, feel as though they will have practical and a very long usage inside Battlefield 4. They don't feel useless in any way. The only gun that does that is the Unica 6. So I'm very much impressed with this DLC overall. It feels as though DICE LA has done an incredible job at making infantry-centric combat that we wanted to see in Battlefield 4. And I'm going to give this DLC overall a 9 out of 10. And I think it's going to be really enjoyable. We of course have the Phantom program, all the Easter eggs as well to add on to the general enjoyment of the DLC. And overall my experience has been very positive. So guys, that's about it for today's review. There's plenty more Dragon's Teeth coming, including lots about the Phantom program and Easter eggs. And of course Destiny Beta, which rolls out on Thursday the 17th for PlayStation 4. But make sure you check out the cinematic, the brand new cinematic which dropped recently called Battlefield Phantoms. We worked incredibly hard on it and it's taken up 116 gigabytes of my hard drive. So make sure you enjoy that, and I will see you again soon with another Battlefield video, with another